How do we heal our addictions once and for all? So, when I'm talking about addictions, it's not just limited to things like, oh, I'm addicted to a hard drug, or I'm addicted to sugar, or I'm addicted to abusive relationships. Although those are pretty common, legit addictions, there are other forms of addictions that are way more subtle that we may not even realize. Maybe we're addicted to buying brand name clothing, or maybe we're addicted to people pleasing, or we're addicted to something like non-sugar gum. That is something that I kicked recently, and it was because I realized there was too much artificial sweetener in it, and it was going to affect my body's way of processing food and feeling hungry when I didn't necessarily need more food. So, how do we kick our addictions? We form them because of some kind of trauma in our childhood. For example, if there was food scarcity when we were a child, that may lead us to overeating as an adult. Because we innately fear not having enough food, we tend to overeat and make sure we take in more than what's needed, but then that actually leads to a dangerous situation in our health as well. Or maybe we faced a very dangerous situation with our parents. Maybe they didn't give us the love that we really deserve when we were kids, and therefore we go after dysfunctional relationships when we become adults. And sometimes that's even just a misunderstanding. Maybe our parents tried to give us love, but it didn't sink in the way that we needed it. As human beings, we're all really unique. We all have unique ways of processing the world, and when we don't get our unique fingerprint of what we need in terms of love and care, sometimes that gets interpreted or embedded in our psyche like trauma, even though the parents actually did their best. They loved their children the way they wanted to be loved, not necessarily in the way the child needed to be loved. And that's why some children turn out to be the favorites of parents, because they have the same style as them, and then others are more of the black sheep of the family because they have a different style and it doesn't gel well with the way the parents want to raise their children. So how do you get over this trauma? You get over the trauma by giving yourself what you need on a very deep emotional level. Most of our traumas are related to our relationships and to our emotions and not fitting in. Usually we technically have enough food. Usually we have clothing, but we might feel trauma because we bought clothing from the secondhand store, or it was a hand-me-down from a neighbor and it wasn't new clothing. It wasn't the brand name clothing that was cool at school. Or maybe we face trauma because our parents pushed us really hard to get high grades in school. And even though they meant well, it actually caused damage in our self-esteem when we didn't get the perfect 98%, when we actually got 89%. Or maybe we got traumatized by the bullies at school because we were nerdy and didn't fit in. Or maybe we were so popular, we had to fit in with the group of kids that were also popular, and then they ended up being really bad kids. I've heard of this happening actually at my former high school, where there was one girl that really had to be perfect and popular, but in order to fit in with the popular boys, she actually ended up getting raped by her boyfriend because she was trying so hard to please him. So even things like that can happen among people who appear to be perfect. You just never know what's going on in someone's world, and we all face trauma in our own way. So we have to resolve those traumas by giving ourselves the ending that we deserve in that situation where we experience trauma. Whatever it is that's bothering you, you have to rehearse in your imagination getting the happy ending over and over and over again. And you might think, this isn't going to work. But the thing about the human mind is it's super powerful, and our imagination is one of our superpowers. And believe it or not, anything traumatic that happened in the past, we can actually fix through conditioning in our imagination. We just bring up the negative memory from our past, relive it, and then replace the image with a different ending of how we would have liked it to have been. Write down how you would like things to be. And then every time you visualize that terrible thing happening, imagine the perfect ending for you of how you wanted it to be. And if you keep imagining that perfect ending, you're going to get to a place where that trauma actually heals in your imagination. You're actually going to believe that the happy ending happened on a subconscious level, and it's going to stop bothering you in your conscious life. that insecurity, for example, if you were trying so hard to people please and fit in and you actually got abused, that ending goes away and you start healing your people pleasing tendencies on a deep subconscious level. You can learn the tools and strategies and say, hey, it's not good to people please, but you may unconsciously go back to that pattern even if you know better intellectually, if you don't train that trauma subconsciously into resolving itself in a happy ending. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. You can do this in hypnosis, but there's also ways like the swish pattern that you can learn from Tony Robbins, where you replace one negative image with a positive image of how you would like it to be. And it can be that quick and that simple. You simply take a few seconds and you imagine the image of the trauma being smashed and replaced with the image of how you'd like it to be. That's like a very quick version, but you can also go deeper and go into hypnosis and play out the whole story in your head and do the happy ending in a slower pace, and that also works. Whatever you have time for, whatever you appreciate, and whatever's going to train your subconscious the best, you can do. And you can even write your own meditation. You can go and ask yourself the questions of what you need to heal in your unconscious, go back to that age and really replay those memories with happy ending. And it might seem scary at first. It's like, oh, I tried to suppress these memories because it was so hard and so difficult to process. But just reassure yourself, you're gonna go in and give yourself the best parenting and the best happy ending that you can offer your inner child. And then you're gonna feel better about it and you're gonna feel brave to go in. But of course, if you've suffered like really major trauma, you may need to go see a therapist to get help and assistance to go back in to that difficult time in your life. But many, many things we can heal on our own. And if we heal that core issue, then whatever we're doing on the outside to soften that issue, whether we're smoking or we're overeating or we're over shopping or we're trying to people please, that behavior is going to go away automatically. Because the problem is, if you just work on the surface level, you might replace that habit with something else. Maybe you buy sugar-free gum instead of potato chips, and then that messes with your appetite. Right? So one addiction can be substituted with another if you're not careful and you don't heal the core wounds. So that's how you go in and you heal yourself so you can set yourself up for a better life free from addiction and bad habits.